Welcome back to the channel. Adam here, and we're doing a review of the cheapest BFS reel on Amazon. Let's check it out.
This is the first cast with the Johncoo BFS reel from Amazon. Oh boy. Alright. We've got some trouble, but I think I can tame this. It feels so weird to be throwing a 6-pound test on a baitcaster. Okay, no backlash that time. I don't have the brakes set all the way, but they're pretty high. Now, as far as accuracy goes, I don't think that it's the most accurate way of casting. I think I would be much more accurate if I was throwing a spinning rod. But for throwing a crank in open water, I don't think this is too bad. Especially if I'm throwing a small crank like this. This is a very old bomber Model A build amps, Fat A edition. Maybe a little too ambitious with that one. Turn up the brake a little more if I'm going to be making a cast like that. With this light line, the bait really dives. It gets a lot deeper than I would typically get with a heavier pound test. Well, this Johncoo is definitely not junk. I don't know if it's really legit. Like, you can feel that it's plastic, that it's not really, you know, a high-end piece of equipment. But will it throw a tiny crankbait? Yeah. Even got a little bit of a breeze going right now, and I'm still able to get it out there. It retrieves the bait just fine. I think one of the keys is to not overpower it. If you try to throw it too hard, it's going to backlash. Let the rod do the work for you. This rod that I have it paired with is actually a Megabass Destroyer. 6'1". I would put it in the medium light category. So yeah, I paired a $35 reel with a $400 rod. What you gonna do about it? But overall, first impressions of this BFS reel, it does what I wanted it to do. It throws a tiny crankbait, and it'll get it down a little deeper than I would with my conventional gear. Probably cast it a little more. I think 6-pound line was a little ambitious for this, and I might upgrade to 8. I mean, really, 10-pound would work on it. But then I'm getting back into the, conventional gear range. It's supposed to be ultralight, finesse bait fishing. Let's climb on board the boat and try out this BFS setup on a bigger lake and see how it does while cranking out here on a deep water ledge. Now, I stuck with the 6-pound test that I had on there, and I didn't really like it after this outing. One of the things that you'll notice here is I keep getting backlashes. Not just the backlash, but the line would actually get stuck in the spool, in between where the spool and the frame meet. And every time it would slip between the spool, it would damage the line. It would scrape up the line, it would make an awful noise, and it just was not confidence inspiring at all. I decided after this trip to upgrade to the 8-pound test, like I'd mentioned in the previous outing, to see if I could avoid that from happening. So these first 2 trips I was using a copolymer line, P-line Floroclear in a 6-pound test. And P-line is very, very stretchy. It's good for hard baits with treble hooks, and it casts very well, typically. So managing the line on a new setup, I figured that would be the best choice. When I upgraded, I decided I'm going to try Fluorocarbon instead, because the Fluorocarbon should have a little bit thicker diameter and maybe not fall into that gap between the spool and the frame. I'm going to speed the rest of this up. I don't really catch any fish out here while I'm throwing this BFS gear. And most of the time you'll see that I'm just messing with a backlash. So I'm really wasting more time fighting with the backlash from this reel than I am fishing. It's not very productive, it's not very efficient, and the more time that I spend messing with my equipment, the less time my bait is in the water. So maybe that's why I didn't catch any fish on this, because my bait is just floating there while I'm picking out a backlash. At this point I'm fed up, and I cut off the crankbait, and I'm going to try a different type of bait to see if maybe it's just the type of lure that I'm throwing, and the crankbait is catching wind and not casting as easily as it should. So now I have a 1/8 ounce Jighead with a ball head and a grub, and we're going to try and throw that around and see if it's any better. Turns out that it is a little better. It casts a little more directly, cuts through the wind, so you're not getting nearly as many backlashes or issues. But the issue of the line going between the spool and the frame is still apparent. No matter what you do, there's nothing that you can do to avoid that because of the diameter of the line just too thin, and it gets in there and it's damaged. I went home, pulled all that line off, and put on some 8-pound test Fluorocarbon and took it to a different pond to see how that would do. I've got Bass Pro Fluorocarbon Excel 8-pound test now, and I'm throwing a Cotton Cordell Big O crankbait. It's a very tiny square bill and pretty good in the cold. That's a good one. Okay. First bass landed on BFS tackle. He ate it good too. Listen to this gnarly backlash. I mean, that sounds awful. There we go. Another fish landed on BFS gear. Give me my bait back. Impressive. Getting back quick. Check that line. We were that close. That close to losing the bait. On to something. We're on to something. Oh, it came off. I'm gonna cut that and retie because I don't like the way it feels. All right. November bass. Achievement unlocked. Get some glamour shots for the gram. Well, that's not good. That's trouble. Some people ask me why I don't put the name of the lake or pond I'm fishing in the description or tell people in the comments. And if you look at this pond, it is less than an acre in size, and there are 3 people fishing, including me. I put that information on the World Wide Web. Am I being selfish? Maybe. And ignore those comments that ask me, where am I fishing? Where are you? I want to catch those fish. There's now 4 people fishing this pond.